Someone was selling a bundle of 3 old radios on eBay, so I jumped in there and got them, and I thought we'd take a quick look at them and see if they need anything fixing or if it's easy enough to fix them. This is the first one. It's a Philips, obviously, from looking at it, and also it's got a model number on the back, which is 90RL110. So I researched that, found it's from 1971, long wave and medium wave, very simple sort of single tuning control for both. There's also a single tuning dial for both, on and off switch and volume control, and that's it really. There may have been a case for it at one time, but I don't have it now. And looking at the back of it, so it appears to take 3 C cells. So let's stick those in and see what we get. Right, the batteries are in. Well, we get some noise. What are we on? We are on long wave at the moment, so around 1500 we should be able to get radio 4. Well, it is there. Usual AM interference in here. Let's try medium wave. Switch is a bit iffy, so we can have a look at that. So we're now looking for 330, I think, for Radio 5 Live. Going the wrong way. It seems basically to work. Very fiddly tuning, of course. There's no chord or reduction or anything. It's just straight off the tuning capacitor. So let's see if we can clean it up a bit. So getting it apart. Let's get the batteries out first. And there seems to be just one screw. Looks like that is what holds it all together. Yeah, very tiny rusty screw there. Let's put that somewhere safe. And I'm guessing it then just pulls apart. I can see somebody's levered it apart before here, so that's my guessing. That might work for us too. Yeah, there it goes. Not entirely without a struggle. Something we need to do at the top, possibly. Oh yeah, there we go. Just lift it a little. Oh, at least it's got a nice little, well, rather faded and fallen to bits, but there is a circuit diagram in the back of it. Glad we don't have to rely on that. At least hopefully we don't have to rely on that. So what I notice is these contacts are a bit corroded, but obviously okay. We'll probably perhaps clean those up a bit. What else? Oh, we were going to have a look at the switch, weren't we? And the switch is here. And it's got a plastic cover on it and then a little bit of foam, which seems to have survived remarkably well over the years. Mostly they just fall to bits. Well, that should be pretty straightforward to clean that up. So I'm just going to get some switch cleaner and spray it in there. I'll work that in a bit. While we're here, I think we'll do the same thing with the volume control. And what else? I think we just give the whole thing a bit of a scrub at the front. These things from Halfords, they're quite good at cleaning up your dashboard on your car. They're quite good for these things as well. Bring a bit of shine back to it. Now I think also we can do something about the silvery bits, because that did have some sort of decoration on it at one point, but it's now gone all a bit rough. So I think what we'll do is just clean it up with a bit of sandpaper, and that should help us out and make it look a lot better, I think, in the end. Right, so that looks to be done, I think. That's a success. Let's have a look at the next radio. So the second of the radios is this Bush portable, similar to Philips, long wave, medium wave only, single tuning control. It's got a bit of reduction this time, so it makes it slightly easier to tune, less sensitive. Unfortunately, the medium wave legends on the dial have completely faded, not visible anymore. Well, they are very vaguely visible, not to this camera, you can sort of see them. Carrying case has been bodged up a bit with black tape, but otherwise not in particularly bad condition. I'm not being able to tell what model it is. And here it is out of the case. Battery box here. And now is that to... Oh, it comes... Oh, here we go. Use for 1.5 volts. So these will be double A's by the looks of things. Yeah. So 4 AA batteries. So it's a 6 volts job. And it's... Oh, that's interesting. It's got a... So the way that's fixed in is onto something that looks like a PP9 fixing type. PP9 type fixing there. But one of the wires has come off, so that's not going to work at all, is it? So that's the first thing to look at. I'm guessing there was a screw holding this together, but that screw's not there anymore, so let's just see if this whole thing just pulls off. Yeah. Okay, let's have a look from the top, shall we? First thing we're going to have to do is fix this battery box back on, isn't it? Because that's come off there. There's also some wires going to the back out to that earphone socket at the back. We'll just make sure we don't break those off, but this is going to be the thing. So if I pull that off, that looks like it is just like a PP9 connector. Sorry, not PP9 connector, PP3 connector, which is being used to go onto the back of this battery box. Battery box looks intact, so I think just put a new connector on here. I'm not going to muck about trying to resolder that back onto there because it's going to be a mess. So let's get... Where's this go? It goes underneath, so we're going to have to get the board off, so that's the next step. I'm guessing these red screws here are the ones to go for. There we go. So, a bit mucky in here. I think we'll give it a bit of a clean. So the third radio is made by a company called Steepletone. They still exist. They were started off in the 70s as a company for making radios and record players, I think, and TVs actually. Over the years, they've morphed into a sort of retro manufacturer making stuff that looks like old radios or looks like old record players, but actually uses modern stuff inside it. They make a lot of these cheap and nasty record players that have terrible tone arms and things that will wreck your record collection if you ever put them on them. But this one, I think, is from the 90s. And it looks like an old radio, of course. It looks, in fact, very much like an old Roberts radio, even down to these rounded off buttons on the ends here. So that, that's a standard Roberts sort of style from the sort of 50s, 60s and things. The thing, of course, that gives it a way of not being from the 1950s is the fact that you've got Talk Sport and Virgin on there, which if people had seen that in the 1950s, they probably thought it was some sort of religious radio station. But obviously this is from the 1990s. A bit late, really, for people to be still making these things, but I suppose some people like them, and why should they not? I mean, if the hassle you sometimes have restoring real old radios, what would be wrong with having one of these? They don't seem to make them anymore, but they do make another one called the Heartbeat, which looks quite different to this. I have a feeling maybe Roberts, who still exist and still make DAB radios that look like this, may have leaned on them and told them not to make them look too much like their stuff. And the Heartbeat thing, I'm guessing, is a sort of throwback to the TV series for that sort of era. So this one is, it's got the handle has come off the side here. That's probably quite easy to fix. It has a little, it's not badly built actually. It has a little clasp here which opens the back of the cabinet up. And in here you've got a battery compartment. It seems to have had some liquid got into here at some point. Yeah, you've got battery compartment, which looks to take... yeah, it's 3 D cells. It just tells you here, 3 D cells. Why didn't I just read that in the first place? And that's held, well, I say held in, not quite held in by these screws here. It's worth taking those off and having a look actually. Before we do that, let's get some batteries in and see if it works. Well, again, it makes a noise.
This is an amazing story, not least because
It's got the older tone top cut control here that we've seen on a number of old radios. So no actual tone control, just a top cut, which is a bit severe. But Radio 4 is definitely on long wave. End of that control's end of that volume control's a little bit iffy.
with dementia today. So that's
Radio 5 is almost exactly where it says it is. So let's have a look at the FM. Now the other thing about the VHF is this aerial doesn't go all the way back in, and also when you pull it out it hasn't got a bendy bit, so I'm not sure how well that will work. Let's put the aerial up, put it on FM. Let's see if we can find Radio Cambridge. So that will be on 96.
I think the first 10 minutes is really important today in terms of being very much on the front foot.
So it seems to work okay. I have to say it's very tinny, and that's probably down to them using this tiny speaker here. Why did they do that? They've got room for a full-size speaker on the back of here. Why did they not use a better speaker? It would have sounded really good, and it seems, odd to sort of spoil the ship for a ha'porth of tar like that. Also, that aerial is beginning to irritate me, that I can't retract it. I think we will have a look in the back of this and see what we can do. So when you look inside this thing, there's very little really compared to a real old radio, because it's all done with 2 chips really. There's this chip here, which is a AM/FM receiver, and then there's this one here. It's got little wires got in the way. There's this one. Oh, there is a transistor, probably only for DC stabilization or something. I thought I saw another chip. Oh yeah, there's this one over here, which is a sort of op-amp cum power amplifier. So that seems to drive. So that's your audio stage. That's your RF, and there's you know, a few support components and not very many. The story with the aerials, but why it wouldn't retract, is that it's not the original aerial. It has been replaced at some point, and what had happened is someone had taken, so it's a different fixing. It's one of these where you screw in through the bottom of the aerial. That's part of the original one that's left, and that bit was still there in place here, and then this aerial screwed into it because it was too big and didn't have the right fixing. Has this sideways fixing like all the new ones have nowadays. Then what they did was just welded that into there with some solder and sort of push that onto it, so it then ended up standing up outside of that. So it wasn't very satisfactory to me because it was a bit too high, but I couldn't really do very much with it. What I did in the end was I got one of the spare aerials I have, which is fairly new, and they have the same sort of fixing, but what I did was took that end fixing off the pivot part and then stuck that into here, and at least now it sort of fits better, although it still won't move around, so you can only pull it up and down, you can't rotate it, which is not brilliant. And I put a fixing by putting a pillar standoff through the front here. Now fortunately the little black screw for the aerial came in, the original aerial fitting came in handy, because I was able to put that in and it's not too intrusive to hold that spacer in place. So yeah, it's all working, and the handle's fixed back in. I put a bit of heat shrink around that to hold it in, because all they had on the other side was a bit of metal on the side of it, but I couldn't find another one of those. So yeah, it's pretty much finished. So what do we conclude with these radios? So the Philips hasn't performed too badly, really. It's a cheap and cheerful thing, and it's come out okay. It's cleaned up nicely, and no real major faults with it. The Bush one is interesting in that it looks as if it should be more sophisticated than the Philips, and it's got a tone control, but just listen to this. I mean, that's with the tone control right down, and it still sounds quite tin. How harsh would it sound if we turned the tone control right up? Yeah, it sounds really horrible. So, audio stage not brilliant there, I don't think. Not on any of these radios, actually. The Philips is probably the best audio stage. This one, I don't know. It just doesn't sound very good to me. I don't think it ever sounded very good. Now, this is such a missed opportunity to me. Why make a radio in the modern world? I say the modern world, it's 30 years ago, so I suppose this should count as an old radio, even though I'm treating it as a modern thing because it's got talk sport on it. Why go to the trouble of making that and then not bother to make it sound good, which would be so easy to do? I mean, if we listen to the audio on this, we have to put batteries in first, don't we?
With all the great music you bring us every Sunday that we all love. Take care, stay safe.
So I don't think that sounds very good.
Well, the same back to you, Daphne. What a lovely message it really is. And Francis has been in touch in Whittlesea.
I keep coming back.
Enjoying the music, but I've got a frozen soul.
Keep coming back to my old RGD Rover, which was made with, you know, earlier technology than this, and has exactly the same facilities.
This one says, brilliant show as always, dancing around the kitchen.
Sounds so much better. Why was it possible to make something that did exactly the same thing better in the old days than it is now? Well, of course it would be possible for them to have made this better, but they just didn't care. There was no need to, because people weren't really buying it thinking about sound quality. They're probably buying it as a piece of furniture in the end, and maybe only occasionally listening to it. But if they do listen to it, people of the 90s might have thought, well, that's how radio sounded in the 60s. They were all rubbish. What a good idea that we've now got digital radio, which is so much better. Except in lots of cases, as we've seen, digital radio doesn't sound better than FM radio, and it was possible to make decent sounding radios back in the 60s and 70s. So, yeah, this is one of the three that I found most interesting and caused me to buy the bundle. And this is one of the three that disappoints me the most, to be honest.